Thanks everybody for joining me. Every now and then, it's important that we get beyond the news of the day and ask some very fundamental questions as to where we are as a nation and where we want to go into the future. A few years ago, the Pew Research Center conducted a rather remarkable poll. They asked the American people a very simple but profound question. And that question was, do you think that life for people like you is better or worse today than it was 50 years ago? In other words, whether you are middle class or working class, low income or wealthy, is life better or worse today than it was for someone like you 50 years ago? And I should mention that I did a very similar poll for people in my own state of Vermont that got just an enormous response. Okay, guess what the answer was to those polls? Rather shockingly, almost 60% of people said that life for someone like them was better 50 years ago than today. Better 50 years ago than today. Wow, what's going on here? How does that happen? Now, people who responded to these polls were more than aware and appreciative that there are medical treatments and prescription drugs today that save lives that didn't exist 50 years ago, and that was a real positive development. They were more than aware of that. And they were more than aware of the importance of computers and cell phones, which didn't exist really 50 years ago. And they enjoy the reality that today we have lovely, huge flat screen TVs, hundreds of cable channels, Netflix and Hulu, chat boxes, etc., etc. People are aware of all of those things. Yet, despite all of that, a significant majority of people believed that life is harder today, is worse today than it was back then. Now, I don't have all the answers, but let me give you a few thoughts as to why I think people responded the way they did. Number one, a lot of it has to do with economics. And let me give you a personal example, if I might. I grew up in a working class community in Brooklyn, New York, and lived in a small rent-controlled apartment. My father didn't make much money, and our family lived paycheck to paycheck. But here's what we also experienced. I recently did some back-of-the-envelope calculations, and if I'm not mistaken, my family paid something like 18% of our limited income on housing. 18%. Do you know anybody today who pays 18%? I doubt it. More likely, people are paying 40, 50%, or even more, which means that they have less money available for other basic necessities. Further, my older brother went to a very fine public college, Brooklyn College, and do you know what he paid in tuition? How much did he pay to go to college? $0. He lived at home a few miles away from school, which meant that he was able to get a very good quality higher education for free. And by the way, if one of us got sick, believe it or not, there was a neighborhood doctor, and as often as not, that doctor would make a house call, check up on the family. Further, and this is really interesting to note, in my neighborhood, in my household, and in fact, in most communities throughout America, 50, 60 years ago, the reality was that one person in the family, and in those days it was almost always the man, could earn enough money to pay the bills. Think about it. Back then, one person working 40 or 50 hours a week could earn enough money to pay the bills. Well, you tell me. How many working class families Do you know who can say the same today? Not many, I expect. And the overall economic trends tell us how all of this happened. Incredibly, despite huge increases in technology and worker productivity, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are lower today than they were 52 years ago. Got that? And during roughly that same period, the Rand Corporation documented a massive transfer of wealth to the tune of $79 trillion, 79 trillion, going from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. In other words, virtually all of the gains from the new technologies and increased worker productivity went to the people on top, not to the average worker. Now, I am discussing this issue not just to compare 50 or 60 years ago to today. More importantly, we've got to be thinking about what the economic trends are as we head into the future, and what all of that will mean to our common well-being. Now, as most of you know, some of the very richest people on this planet, folks like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mr. Ellison and Mr. Zuckerberg and others, are investing right now many, many hundreds of billions of dollars in AI and robotics. Elon Musk himself says that he wants to have Tesla build millions of robots. These guys are arguing, correctly I think, that AI and robotics will make the world and our economy more efficient. Yeah, but what does all of that efficiency that Musk and the others are going to bring about mean for you? Can improve your life. If the technology of the last 50 years has primarily made the very, very rich much richer, while leaving 60% of our people today living paycheck to paycheck, who do you think will benefit from these revolutionary and transformative changes being brought about by AI and robotics? Who's going to benefit and who is going to get hurt? That is a question of enormous consequence. Now, do you think that Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos and these other multi-billionaires are making these investments in order to improve life for you and other ordinary Americans? Maybe, but I doubt it. In my view, these guys understand that their investments, these huge investments, will make them even richer and more powerful than they are right now. In fact, as some economists have pointed out, these investments will result in significant labor cost reductions as AI and robotics replace tens of millions of human workers. But it's not just economics. When we talk about our quality of life, economics is important, but there are other things as well. Will AI and robotics break through the isolation, the loneliness, and the emotional struggles that millions of Americans are experiencing now? Or will they only accentuate those problems? Now, I don't know the answers to these questions. I don't think anybody does. But frankly, I do not believe that the richest people in this world are making these investments to improve life for you and other Americans. I think they're in it to make themselves even richer and more powerful than they are right now. Bottom line is that this is an issue of enormous consequence. I mean, we're talking about the future of civilization here. And I got to tell you, it is an issue that we are absolutely not discussing enough. So I would love to hear from you. What do you think about the impact that AI and robotics will have on your life, on your community, on this country, on the world? Comment below, if you will. Comment below this video with your thoughts, and I look forward to reading them and seeing them. So thanks all very much for being with me today. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.